shall we?
We watched iMPACT, everyone. There were 2 really good matches in the show. I'm saying that as I stall for time while I open my notes are there. Taz showed up at the building. The security guards were not letting him in. Never really did find out why. They just said Hulk Hogan had banned him from the show. And he got a furious promo on these men. Very irate. This was classic old school badass Taz, except for the very end where instead of suplexing them onto their heads, he threatened to make a phone call.
I can't win them all.
Times change. They played what they called the latest August 1 warning video was. And by the latest, I mean the first one that had ever been on TV anywhere.
That was funny about this August 1 thing.
A lot.
I was baffled that they did all of this on the internet, starting on Friday, mind you. So they couldn't even do one of these on television last week to get people excited.
No.
It was all on the internet.
Yes.
So, I was like, well, I know about it because I'm on the internet and this is my job. But man, think about all these people that aren't on the internet all the time. They know nothing about it. Well, imagine my surprise when I learned today watching iMPACT, I believe Jeremy Borash mentioned it, that there had been 4 of them.
Yeah.
Meaning I, Brian Alvarez, who makes a living with a wrestling website, who is the host of the most listened to wrestling show anywhere in the entire universe, was completely unaware that there were 3 additional videos.
Yeah, it turns out they don't know what they're doing.
I'm baffled.
This promotion really sucks at promoting.
Yeah, promotion is an improper term when referencing TNA.
These folks. Even calling them a company gives them too much credit as professionals. These clowns. So they showed this video. First time it was ever on TV, and there was a shadowy figure and distorted voice, and it looked like a C+ high school video editing class project.
Now Tito's out of money, remember?
Apparently. Austin Aries came out for a promo. He congratulated Chris Sabin on his championship win. He vowed to win the BFG series and challenged Sabin for the title. Talked about wrestling AJ Styles for the first time on tonight's show. Said AJ had carried the company for the last 10 years, and he was going to carry the company for the next 10 years, and he'd prove it tonight. This is all fine and dandy. He started to leave, and Bobby Roode came out. And I like Bobby Roode. I don't know what happened here. Maybe they just gave him crap material. But Bobby Roode talked for like 2 minutes and said nothing interesting. Nothing of any value at all whatsoever.
He did say one thing interesting. He said he was going to go back to his roots, and he was going to do what he did to win the world title.
He did say that. That was relevant by the end of this
and it was
show.
A true statement.
Yeah.
Literally.
So, eventually he stopped. He was quite dull. And Aries just said that he hoped Roode made the tournament finals so he could beat him again. And he left. It led to Bobby Roode versus Hernandez. You recall last week, Hernandez lost to Anderson when he missed the Air Mexico dive, splattered on his face, and Anderson hit his finish and pinned him.
Like a lunkhead.
Yeah. So this week, Hernandez missed a top rope splash and landed like a fish in the middle of the ring. And Roode immediately put him in the crossface. I thought they were going to make Hernandez lose in the most humiliating manner possible 2 weeks in a row, but it was not to be. Match continued, and Roode hit a low blow behind the ref's back and hit a cradle, but Hernandez kicked out. And Roode started throwing chairs into the ring. For some reason, the ref took like 20 minutes to get these chairs out of the ring, and in that time, Roode found a beer bottle under the ring, broke it over Hernandez's head, and then he pinned him.
Because that is, in fact, how he won the world title.
So I guess that's how it's going to be his finish in all matches now. Beer bottle to the head.
Sure hope not.
The only thing I liked about this finish and this whole development is that after counting the pin, the referee noticed there were shards of glass all over the ring. And he looked to Roode as if to say, "Where did these shards of glass come from?" And Roode pointed up to the sky, as if it had been raining glass from the ceiling.
Yes.
That was funny. Main Event Mafia were walking around backstage. Rampage Jackson got to say, "Oh yeah." ODB says he was wrestling Gail tonight. Eric said he could not be out there with her because he was dealing with Joe Park. He explained to Joe that when you wrestle, you bleed, and then you snap, and then you lose, but tonight you're wearing this. It will solve all your problems. He handed him a little package. Chris Sabin and TJ Perkins had a terrible, terrible, terrible promo segment. Phony, unbelievable, unlikable, bad dialogue, badly delivered. Want you to give your best, man. And TJ talking about, I was nothing as TJ Perkins by putting this mask, and look at all I've done. All right, see you next week. Okay, bye. I may have put too much passion and energy into that. This sucked. A Bound for Glory series match, Jay Bradley versus Joe Park. These are the two jobbers of the tournament. They are there so everyone else can get wins. It still went on for a very long time. Bradley cut a promo saying that if he hit his boomstick, he'd get some of these.
His boomstick.
He'd get some of these, and he held up 7 fingers. Is that how many points you get for a pin?
Yes.
I see. I'm trying to figure out what the hell 7 meant. So the big secret for Eric Young, his big secret weapon for Joe Park was boxing headgear. So he couldn't bleed. So Bradley controlled the entire match. Yanked at the headgear once in a while.
What a plan, by the way.
Yeah. So Joe made his comeback and got a Boston Crab, but Bradley got the ropes, and they just kept on wrestling. And Bradley tried a backbreaker, and Joe Park is huge, and I thought Bradley broke his own leg. And then finally, Bradley tried his lariat, but Park caught him and hit a Samoan drop for the win. So he won, got 7 points. That put him up to -3, and he was moved to the point of tears by this feat.
So just to recap what Vinny said, Jay Bradley decided that he was going to do a backbreaker on Joe Park.
Yeah.
Who weighs over 300 pounds.
I'm going to take the biggest guy in the company and drop him across my knee.
This looked, in fact, horrible. This was not a good match.
Well, he wasn't.
Joe did hit a fall-away slam, or what do they call it?
Samoan drop.
Samoan drop. And literally, they bounced 25 feet in the air. He's so fat. And there was so much weight coming down on the ring that I could not believe that the ring did not break.
Main Event Mafia had a meeting. They established that none of them knew who the August Warning dude was. Then they started talking about Bully Ray losing his title, and Sting had a happy freakout where he started giggling and slapping the table. And he calmed down, regained his composure, and apologized. It was actually really great.
It was quite great.
And they, about 47 times throughout the show, they agreed they would make the Aces and Eights an offer they couldn't refuse. Chris Sabin versus Manik. Earlier in the show, like 5 minutes ago, I talked about how horrible their promo was. The good news is, as horrible as that promo was, this match was better.
Hell of a lot better.
Yes. I mean, but it is farther away from average than the promo. This was better than that was bad. Just watch this match if you want. It ruled. The one thing I will say, and it just didn't occur to me until the end of the show, but Chris Sabin is the World Heavyweight Champion, the face of the company, but he's not in the main event.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. He's probably losing the cage match, but try. And it doesn't matter. Same ratings, everything, I know that, but try.
You know, many years ago, WCW decided they were going to put the world title on Ron Simmons.
Yes.
And first off, Ron Simmons, you know what I mean? Like, someone thought this was a great idea to put the title on Ron Simmons. So, usually when you're going to put the title on somebody, you got to especially when it's a guy that's not like a top star, dude needs help, right?
Right.
Well, Ron Simmons worked nowhere near the top of the card during the time that he was the champion. In fact, I think one pay-per-view he was in a tag match on the mid-card as world champion, and you'll be shocked, I say, to hear that this did not get over at all.
No.
They took the title back off of him.
I just remember, because that was the early 90s, there was a very cartoony period in wrestling. You had plumbers and hog farmers running around and stuff. But there was a time when the world champions of the two biggest companies were Bret Hart, whose gimmick was that he was a wrestler, and Ron Simmons, whose gimmick was that he was a wrestler. And at the time, I thought that was pretty cool. Now, that being said, I also remember that there was a pay-per-view WCW ran with a main event of Ron Simmons defending the world title against the Barbarian.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea.
Sure is.
So, yeah. Also, I'd just like to say that we must be the first people in the world to compare Ron Simmons to Chris Sabin.
Well, probably not, because they did the exact same thing here. At least it was the top of the hour, which nowadays is still kind of like a main event spot. But still, yeah. Chris Sabin, if he's going to be the champion, and he won't be champion for long, I would guess. Although, I will say that I predicted that Mr. August 1 Warning, was going to be a nobody, because I concluded that if it were somebody, they surely would have promoted this on anything other than the internet.
Fool.
I was wrong.
Taz was pissed about not being let into the building. He vowed to expose Mr. August 1 Warning, which, by the way, what a horrible name. Doesn't matter anymore. Threw open the white Hummer door, started laughing. Inside was a laptop showing the August 1 Warning video. So we are to believe that Tito Ortiz took out his laptop, went to YouTube, went to his own site, hit play, put it on a loop, and then left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what happened.
Bad Influence got a promo. They are wrestling each other next week in the Bound for Glory series. Even though this was inevitable as soon as they both qualified for the tournament, they were pissed at TNA for booking them against each other. Started talking about how they would always be a unit, always be together, nothing could drive them apart. And then Daniels mentioned in passing that he was undefeated and Frankie had not won yet. And Frankie got pissed and spilled his appletini. Very sad. Gail Kim wrestled ODB. Match was fine. Did a lot of spots on the ramp using the ropes. And then eventually they brawled on the floor. And there was a double countout, and they just kept brawling, and a bunch of refs came out to separate them. So they'll do a rematch. This is fine.
Yeah. I thought Gail was awesome. But ODB wasn't bad. Building was absolutely empty. I think we should note that. Building was empty. I got a seating chart, and the seating chart had X's over every section that was going to be empty.
Yes.
This was like back in the old days in Tic-Tac-Doe, where some guy just absolutely obliterated the other guy, and there were X's all over the board. I don't know if that can actually happen, but
I'm sure somewhere it could.
There was nobody there in this building. And worse, the few people that were there hated this finish and booed vociferously. So yeah.
Homeless AJ cut a backstage promo saying dream matches were BS. The only thing that matters are championships and titles, not dreams or heroes. Bully Ray had a meeting with his gang.
Actually, you missed a part where they had clips of King Mo winning the tournament and earning a Bellator title shot. They're actually doing cross-promotion, believe it or not.
Mm.
This is a big story. He's supposed to be on their roster, so they should push this big, which they actually did.
Bully Ray had a meeting with his gang. He blew off the main event Mafia, told them to deal with it, put Anderson in charge, said, you guys deal with this. I'm going to focus on my cage match with Chris Sabin and getting my belt back. Suddenly, Brooke Hogan ran into him, and she said there were things in his contract that may not be in his favor, and suggested that she would soon be his ex-wife.
I hope they actually do my idea.
You only get the title shot if you agree to do a divorce?
Yeah.
It would make sense. The main event match was AJ Styles and Austin Aries. If you throw out the finish, this was great. A great pro wrestling match you must all go out of your way to see.
I've never seen... I shouldn't say that. Rarely have you seen a match so awesome with such a bad finish.
Yes, I'm sure we can think of some. I was going to say, and this also applies, rarely have you seen a match with so little heat at the beginning and so much at the end.
Well, there was nobody there.
There was nobody there. Austin Aries is a heel. AJ Styles is whatever the fuck AJ Styles is. But this match ruled. So everyone was going nuts.
Well,
the 7 or 8 people who were there.
They had a great match. It was a really great match, actually. And then they had the finish. And sometimes you'll see like a really great match, and the idea that they have for the finish sucks. Like, oh man, I just realized that we booked this match, but I don't want either guy to lose. Oh, you just now thought of that? Huh. All right, well, what are you going to do? Oh, let's do a DQ. Let's do a count out, whatever. That's not what they did here. We actually got a finish, which is why it's even more baffling. It'd be one thing if you had like an awesome match between these two guys and then you did a count out or a DQ or something like that. But they actually decided to have a finish, which was AJ pinning Aries. I'm sorry, Aries pinning AJ. And so they decided to do the old double pin where one guy gets his shoulder up. But like, close your eyes, everybody, and imagine 10 different double pins where one guy gets his shoulder up. I'll give you 10 seconds. All right. Every goddamn last single one of those that you just thought about right there was better than what they did. They both fell down and proceeded to somehow maneuver an arm onto each other. And it was so badly done. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, they had to fight so hard to pretend like they unconsciously got an arm on each other.
Yeah.
It was so bad.
They were standing there trading strikes. They were really great strikes. Everyone was going nuts. And yes, Aries fell flat, or AJ fell flat to his back, and Aries was standing over him and had to fall forward and twist. So he fell next to AJ, and then they had to put their arms on top of each other. And really, the worst part was the ref counts 1, the ref counts 2, and Aries just kind of casually lifts up an arm and a shoulder, and the ref counts 3. And I thought, did Aries fuck up? Did the ref fuck up? What just happened there? And the ref said Aries won, which technically is true, but it looked really bad.
Really bad
from start to finish, man.
And it was so infuriating because the match was so awesome.
They couldn't just you couldn't have hit a schoolboy and grabbed the ropes to protect AJ. They had to do this stupid thing.
Or I can think of, just like I said, you can think of a million double pin finishes where a guy gets his shoulder up.
Yeah.
And all of them would have been better than this one. This just looks so bad. So yeah, that was annoying.
Match was great. You should all go out of your way to see it, but just pretend in your mind they did something else.
Yeah.
Main Event Mafia came out for the main event promo, in fact. They called out the Aces and Eights. Angle challenged them at Hardcore Justice to a 5-on-5 match, with the loser of the fall having to leave the company forever. A giant brawl broke out. The Mafia won. Mr. Anderson, enraged, accepted their challenge, and then Tito Ortiz walked out on the ramp. And it was just that casual.
Yeah. There
was kind of a sound effect in music, and they had some like blue lights waving back and forth, but Tito just walked out like he's just another guy. And Mafia was confused, especially Rampage, who of course is booked to fight this man. Not that the announcers included anyone in. Aces and Eights were confused. Tito just smiled. Fans were silent. This was lame.
This was not the best debut I've ever seen.
This may have been Shockmaster is still worst, but
yeah,
this is bad.
I thought until they said the loser had to leave forever, I just figured that Tito Ortiz cost Quentin Jackson the match, so Rampage has to leave because he's going to train, obviously, and then you have a real fight between the two. But I would presume that Rampage would be back at some point, right? I suppose I'm reading too much into this stipulation. But yeah, there was some good stuff on this show. The Sabin Manik match was great. The AJ Aries match was great until the finish. And I should add, not only was the finish bad, but after they'd had this awesome match, they have a bad finish, and then it is immediately to the back because the Aces and Eights and the Mafia are coming out. So that was classic TNA right there. Those two things were really good. The rest of the show was kind of just a show. And the Tito debut was disappointing. But it's just a guy. You know what I mean?
He's just a guy.
There's a lot of guys on the internet that are very, very upset. I could not even believe how upset people were about Tito Ortiz debuting on iMPACT. It's kind of just like, it doesn't matter, everybody. He's just another guy that's debuting. It's not that big a deal. I understand if you're mad because guys have been cut in order to apparently pay for Tito Ortiz, but they may not have paid anything for him at all. He may just be doing a cross-promotion deal with Bellator, and TNA isn't paying anything. I don't know. So don't get too upset about this. It's just a guy.
Taz and the Aces and Eights kicked Mike Tenay out of the building.
Yeah!
Then he went down and they harassed Jeremy Borash.
Not excited?
I'm doing my best.
Why? What's happening here with these announcers?
I don't know.
What kind of storyline are we getting here? I don't get it. Where's Dixie to put Mike Tenay back, for example?
Well, they announced Hulk Hogan was away at a meeting with the board.
I did love that. They tape one goddamn show every 2 weeks, and Hogan can't be there for it.
They had to schedule the meeting with the board on a Thursday night during their weekly television program at 10 p.m.
Yeah. Well, go on.
So Bully Ray cut a promo, said he was not afraid of Tito Ortiz.
He called Chico.
He did call Chico. He was threatening you.
Yeah.
He was outraged that he and Devon had been booked against Chris Sabin and a mystery partner tonight. Then he said the mystery partner would be one of the guys in the main event Mafia, which really cuts the candidates way down. He vowed to regain his title in the cage match.
Especially since two of them were wrestling already.
Yeah. He won in 3 chance, and you still got it wrong. Called Sabin out for his contract signing. Sabin came out, cut a stupid promo. Said, "You're so full of it, your eyes are brown, and your breath smells like feces."
Exact words.
That was his quote.
Sucked.
Can't believe they put this on TV. He was rambling on about how Bully Ray had lied, and Sabin had beaten him, and it was a fair win, and he was going to beat him again. And Bully Ray took the words out of my mouth when he said, blah, 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 blah. This is Impact, everyone. So Brooke came out with the contract. Here was where she said her dad was out of town at a meeting. She had a statement from Hulk that began, "Brother, they were going to hold Bully to, quote, the letter of the law in all of his contracts." They weren't doing that anyway? Isn't that what contracts are for?
Not in this town.
So apparently, in Bully Ray's contract, I don't know why he agreed to this clause.
Well, this is the funny part. Tell him what it said.
If he loses the cage match to Chris Sabin, then he can never challenge for the championship again.
Now, if you didn't see the show, this contract clause that Bully Ray was unaware of, I'm going to give a multiple choice quiz here. Do you think that A, she revealed this clause before he signed the contract, or B, she revealed this shocking clause and then he signed the contract?
I must disqualify myself because I watched the show.
If you voted B, that she alerted him that he had not read the contract carefully, and he should be alerted that if he does not beat Chris Sabin, he can never, ever, ever, ever get a championship match again. She alerted him to this before he signed the contract.
Mm-hmm.
He then proceeded to sign anyway.
Yeah.
Sabin's going to look like such an idiot next week.
Yeah.
This poor guy.
Yeah.
And he looked like an idiot here because Brooke Hogan decided, I'm going to come out to the ring in high heels.
Yes.
She looked twice his size.
Yes.
This segment was no good.
No, and it went on for a long time. Samoa Joe wrestled Jeff Hardy in a Bound for Glory series match.
He looked like a child.
No.
An old child.
That's the thing.
He looked like, who was the old hobbit?
Oh, Bilbo.
Bilbo. He looked like Bilbo Baggins.
He does. Looks like Bilbo Baggins.
When he was 101 and hadn't had the ring in a long time.
He's wearing the belt, like, strapped around him, but not around his waist. It's going, like, over his shoulder and strapped behind his back. I assume because it's so big, it won't fit around his waist.
Think about that.
It would just drop to his feet. Everything they're doing with this guy makes him look tiny.
This is not good.
They need to put everyone else in a box when they're around him. Just go all the way with it. He is the Hobbit World Champion.
They should have signed those two guys that fought at UFC 163 that look about 4'8". They could have told Bully about the contract and Sabin. Then they would have both looked big. Very short guys. Legit hobbits. Anyway.
So Samoa Joe was wrestling Jeff Hardy, and Mr. Anderson was doing commentary for this match only. He was out there with Taz and Tenay. And Joe's working him over. He's doing a bunch of submissions. And he puts on a chokehold, and Hardy is struggling. And Anderson gets up from the announce desk, and he looks at Joe. And Joe sees Anderson 20 feet away and panics and lets go of the choke. And then Hardy rolls him up and pins him.
He stood up.
Anderson stood up.
Anderson stood up, which distracted Joe so badly that Jeff Hardy did a jaw jacker and a cradle and pinned him. This was not very good.
No.
The match was good, but the finish was goofy. Yeah. And my cat completely distracted me.
Your cats were a million times better than the show tonight.
Tiggy decided to chase ghosts, in a completely out of her mind manner.
I thought, based on her behavior, there was something stuck in her whiskers, and she thought it was a bug flying around.
It's possible.
So she would chase it, but then, of course, she'd move her head, and it would move.
It's also possible there really was a bug in the house, because of the 3 cats, her vision is astonishing. The smallest little bug can be flying around, and I can't see it, and Whitney can't see it, but she is lasered in on it the whole time. So it's possible there was a little bug in the house, and she was just going out of her mind. It was very exciting, though. Up and down, doing flips. It was great. Climbing up the cat tree.
Climbing the cat tree and looking at the bottom of it.
We got a cat. No, we got 2 cat trees. One of them is a scratching post, actually. And it's if you just point your fist straight up in the air, that's as big around as a scratching post is, and it's about 2 feet high. And she was running up it and standing at the top of it. I don't even know how she balanced, except she's a cat. And she was standing there, and then she'd flop onto her stomach and be draped over the top of it, which looked like she was being impaled, and then just being crazy. It was way better than this match.
Yeah. Daniels got a promo. He was facing his tag team partner, Kazarian, tonight. He was all business here, said, I'm more experienced than Kaz. I've been more successful in my career. I am 3-0. He's 0-3. This is not his night. This is my night. He left. Anderson wrestled Magnus. So they're doing this match. And Anderson gets the heat, and Magnus does his comeback, and Anderson cuts him off, and he's going to hit the mic check and win when Bobby Roode appears with a steel chair. And everyone was perplexed. They all just looked at him for a minute, and then he turned and he started whacking Anderson with the chair. And he left. So this means Mr. Anderson won the match by disqualification. This means that Magnus, who had nothing to do with any of this bullshit, lost 10 points.
Yeah. I know I shouldn't care because it really doesn't matter. But this is so dumb. I mean, I understand what they're trying to do, but as a viewer, it's so dumb because it should have just been a no contest. The idea that a perfectly innocent man could lose 10 points in this tournament because a heel obviously was trying to fuck him. I mean, you just rule it a no contest and nobody gets any points. I don't even know why I'm fixated on this, but it was because I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that Roode's going to come out every week and he's going to cost Magnus 10 points. So Magnus's gigantic lead will be, dropped down to nothing. Hopefully he still ends up in the Final Four or something like that. But I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. If this were real, this would never happen. It'd just be ridiculous that the idea of this could happen. But it happened here. And then they go backstage and Roode guarantees he's going to keep doing this.
That's correct, yes.
And then Magnus goes up to the ref, and Magnus is like, nah, I don't care. I'll get him back. I'm like, you moron.
Yeah, that did not do much to build to a rematch, did it?
I realize that you can't have a whining, crying babyface.
He could vow revenge.
Or just not interview him.
Well, you could
just
say,
interview the damn ref.
You could say, ref, I understand you do your job, but Roode, when I get my hands on you, we're going to tear you limb from limb.
That's right. And ref, if you do this again, I'll kick your ass.
Robbie E. and Jesse. There was a show about a month back where we missed the second half because your TV blew up. But on the second half of that show, they formed a new tag team called the BroMans. So the BroMans are having a discussion backstage when Mickie arrived. Turned out they had a 6-person tag tonight, and she said she needed to win. They said, this is the bro locker room, you have to leave. I already love this duo. Sabin met with the main event mafia. He asked them to trust him and said he had a plan.
His plan was, when do you team with me? Just in hindsight.
Essentially. It's actually worse than that, but we'll get there. Borash brought Tito Ortiz out for a promo.
By the way, I should add, next week is supposed to be that big match where it's like 4-on-4, main event Mafia against 4 members of the whatever the group's called, the Aces and Eights, right?
Yeah.
So how's Kurt going to wrestle? He's in rehab.
Don't know.
Wonder how they'll handle that situation.
Hopefully, honestly. Sting comes out and says, Kurt Angle is in rehab. For tonight, we're making Jeff Hardy a member. And he came out in a suit.
I guess he could probably I'd like to see him in a suit.
Borash brought Tito Ortiz out for a promo. Tito said he could not answer everyone's questions, but there's one thing he could say. At that point, Kurt Angle interrupted. He got in Tito's face, listed all of his accomplishments, said, I will respect your space, but you have to respect mine. Tito said he understood this. Bully Ray came out, said he didn't respect either of them, warned them both to stay out of his way, and he left. Then Angle shook hands with Tito, and he left, and that was it.
Tito looked so unnatural and nervous, and his music sucks. Angle was good. Tito just stuck out like a sore thumb, and not in a good way. He just does not look at all natural. And he's been doing the real deal forever.
Yes.
Something about being in front of those cameras in front of a pro wrestling audience, I guess, just sucks all the charisma out of you. Did the same thing with Quentin Jackson, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They both look like, green rookies. I mean, they are in wrestling, but they should have. They've been in front of a million crowds. They've cut a million
much larger
promos.
Crowds than this.
Jesus. Yeah, it just was weird.
The BroMans and Mickie James versus ODB and Gunstorm.
Fun match.
Didn't realize this until they came out, but Gunstorm, the World Tag Team Champions, have not been on the show in weeks, perhaps months.
I'd forgotten they were the World Tag Team Champions.
Yeah. Had a fun match. It was formulaic. Got the heat on Storm. Gunner got the hot tag, made a big comeback. Girls did a little bit. And then the champions hit Robbie with a double team slam and pinned him.
Mm-hmm.
And Gail ran out and attacked ODB.
Would be remiss if I did not mention Mickey's shorts, which were outstanding.
True.
Amazing.
True. So Gail attacked ODB, then she got pulled off, and then Mickie attacked ODB, and then she left, and she tried to play nice with Gail, but Gail blew her off. So presumably there's a 3-way coming. Kazarian cut a promo on Daniels. He also is all serious. So that Daniels had forgotten he was a 5-time X Division champion. He had beaten Daniels several times. He's going to do it again. They aired a commercial for all the merchandise you can get at the TNA website, including the Rob Van Dam action figure. Very timely.
Been that way for a week now. A couple weeks, actually. It's amazing.
Team 3D cut a promo. They were pissed off. They didn't know who Sabin's partner was, and then they disagreed about how many world titles they had officially won.
Agreed it was a lot.
They did agree it was a lot. Kazarian versus Daniels. First, they came out with a generic music for each guy. And I hope this does not mean the end of the Bad Influence music, because that music is such a great part of this act. So, they did some basic chain wrestling. And then they started shoving each other a bit. And then it got to the point in the cliched story where they would start trading blows. And this stopped. And they looked at each other. And they stepped out of the ring. And they looked at the ref. And he asked him to count them both out. And so he did. It was double count out. It was part of their plan all along. They had a great party about how they had fooled everyone and picked up 2 points each. And then Bobby Roode came out. And he announced that they were a unit now. They were going to do this with each other and keep hitting guys with chairs so they lose 10 points. And one of them was guaranteed to win this tournament.
I like this trio.
It works. You got the singles guy and the tag team.
I thought for sure when they were being counted out that at 9 they were both going to try and jump in at the same time and screw the other. But didn't happen.
There was a great point where about 9.9, and keep in mind they're just standing on the ramp. And as the ref is just about to turn to count them out, Kaz makes one feeble attempt to grab the ropes and comes up short and says, darn it.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited for the duo. I am not excited for this chair shot gimmick. Because in no company in the world would someone in authority not put their foot down after the first time it happened.
Well, the authority figure here is Dixie Carter.
It's true. And Hogan's on vacation.
Hogan.
He's at an important meeting. Thursday night at 9.
And apparently he doesn't have a cell phone to make any ruling or anything. He's just lost. Tito Ortiz got a backstage promo. Said at Hardcore Justice, quote, "These hands might be all over it."
Still not good.
No. Worse, in fact. And the main event was Team 3D versus Chris Sabin and a mystery partner. So Sabin's plan was to come out of the ramp with Sting and then have Kurt Angle attack Team 3D from behind.
Mm-hmm.
His plan was to be a coward.
He got him.
It worked.
Then they immediately got the heat on Kurt.
I guess it worked.
Started beating him up.
They had a lot of time. They had a fun main event. You know, it's Team 3D, Chris Sabin, and Kurt Angle. It's not going to be a bad match. And Angle got the hot tag. Excuse me, Sabin got the hot tag. He ran wild for a while. Broke down into a four-way. Actually, Angle got one too. Point is, Sabin got tossed out into the ramp, sold his knee. Angle got hit with 3D. Team 3D put up a table in the corner, and they went to put Sabin through it, but he dodged, and Ray went through the table, and then Sabin hit a crossbody on Ray and pinned him.
Yep.
And the announcers were pointing out that if this happens next week, Bully Ray never gets a title shot again.
You know, I got to say one thing about this Bully Ray Sabin thing. You know what it is? It is Chico Alvarez against Tim Flowers.
In some ways.
I've thought it since day one. You've got the big, mean heel, and you've got the little flying baby face.
The big, mean heel from New York, by the way.
And the big, mean heel, when you watch their matches, every time I watch their matches, I'm like, that is exactly... Those are the exact same matches I had with Tim. Like, he beats me up forever. He gives me a hope spot here or there. And if I ever pin him, which was rare, it's like with a high cross off the top rope, which was the finish of this tag match, by the way. You know, I just... Sabin works a certain kind of match with a certain kind of person. And the Bully Ray Sabin feud has been such an old school, wacky pro wrestling style. I don't even know how to even explain it. It's just old school, you know? Like, Sabin isn't doing any of his crazy spots. He may do like an enziguri here or there. But Bully is like, I mean, the matches are exactly like Tim used to do these. Exactly. It's kind of, when he did that high cross off the top, I was like, this is going to be the finish. Because it's exactly how Tim would have me pin him if we did a match. I would do a high cross off the top rope. And it's exactly what they did. So I'm having flashbacks to 1999 every time I see this feud. When I had that feud with Tim and we had like 50 matches, and every single solitary match was like Bully Ray versus Chris Sabin. Although I never got the title and Sabin did, so he's got one up on me.
So this is the Hardcore Justice show, which is no longer on pay-per-view because it's just not. They were in Norfolk, Virginia. Fine crowd on the show. And as they panned the crowd, there was a guy in his 60s who was holding up a toy championship belt. Opener was a four-way ladder match. Austin Aries versus Frankie Kazarian versus AJ Styles versus Jeff Hardy. Winner got 20 points in the Bound for Glory series, and you could tell they got 20 points because the clipboard had a piece of paper with a TNA letterhead and the number 20 in giant font.
That's right.
As ladder matches go, this was not the most insane thing I've ever seen. They were taking some risks, but most of it was moderate risk, just lots of abuse, lots of things that will hurt you but not paralyze you. The scariest one, I think, was when Kazarian actually teased a superplex off the top of the ladder, and that would have been very scary. But then instead, he just poked Aries in the eye, and they both just fell down and landed on their feet. So they're having this match, and it comes down to Chris Daniels and Bobby Roode coming out. They distracted the ref, because you can't have the ref calling for a DQ in a four-way ladder match. And they interfered, and Kazarian got the contract, so this trio is helping each other win all the matches. It was a very good match.
Yeah, they distracted the ref. I don't know why.
Sabin cut a promo backstage about watching Team 3D put men through flaming tables before he even broke into the business. Said he was the world champion, he'd already beaten Bully Ray twice, and he vowed to leave the building still champion. Famous last words.
By the way, in that opening match, throughout the show, they had Daniels and Kazarian and Roode interrupting all these matches so they could all win 20 points. And my My first thought was, why are they helping each other win? Because, by helping Kaz win, now Kaz may beat both of them. They're all in the tournament together. And you explained that, well, they're all friends.
Basically, yeah.
Now, this is fine if these are baby faces. But we are dealing now with unselfish heels.
Yes. Heels committed to a cause.
That's a likable trait.
Loyal to each other and willing to make sacrifices.
This isn't about themselves. It's about the betterment of the group. Same with aces and eights. Well, they do have arguments here and there. They're all working together for a cause. It's wacky.
Dixie Carter and the Main Event Mafia were in the ring for a promo. They announced Kurt Angle was in rehab, and they all supported him and wanted him to get well soon. Rampage Jackson was in the ring in a suit with a camouflage blazer. Amazing. Anderson came out with the aces and eights. They went back and forth for a while, and Anderson bragged about how he was going to end one of their careers next week, and Magnus fired back at him. They would find some replacement, even if they had to grab somebody out of the audience. The audience cheered this idea, and then a brawl broke out, and the aces and eights had the man advantage, and so they won the brawl. Gail Kim versus Mickie James versus ODB in a three-way.
They did make sure they had two dudes beating on Quentin. And it was 5-on-4, and I think it was just easier to have two guys attacking Quentin, not make him look weak.
Right.
Plus, one guy could explain how to sell while the other guy was kicking him.
Act like it hurts. Gail versus Mickie versus ODB. Non-title three-way match. Non-title hardcore three-way match. They used a chair once or twice. Used some very, very light stick shots. ODB removed her bra and choked her opponents with it. Mike Tenay deadpanned. I don't think I've ever seen this before.
Tried to take it off, but it only halfway got off.
I think it broke.
And she couldn't break it.
Yeah.
It finally broke after she choked someone with it.
Yeah.
But at first, she couldn't get her own bra off.
Well, she did it while keeping her other clothes on, which I would think would up the difficulty substantially. Let's go ask the women. I don't know. Anyway.
Or would you? Never mind.
How dare you?
ODB appeared, I don't know if she got hurt, got her bell rung or whatever, but they lost the crowd because ODB was just like all over the place. She didn't know which way to face.
Yeah.
She kept turning around randomly, and the girls had to walk around her to find out where to hit her.
Yeah.
She was just all over. And then she finally pinned Gail. I don't know if she got hurt or what the deal was, but the last minute or so of this match, she had absolutely no idea where she was at or where she was supposed to be.
Yeah, she pinned Gail with a TKO onto a steel chair, and Mickie threw a tantrum. Mafia had a meeting backstage. Sting said, without Kurt, we're vulnerable. Joe said, our careers are on the line. We need someone we can trust.
Actually, Sting was kind of like, God bless the guy, but damn it! We need him!
Yes.
Fuck this rehab!
Yes. So Sting said, look, Magnus, I know you hate him. Joe, I know you hate him. Rampage, if you knew him, you'd probably hate him, but we need Austin Aries. And he went to recruit him. Next segment was Sting trying to recruit Austin Aries. It did not go well. Roode cut a promo saying his plan was working out. He and his running buddies were taking over the Bound for Glory series. Sting returned to the main event Mafia. He walked in and said, now I hate him. He said no. That was awesome. Rampage said he had a solution. He was going to go address it in the ring. Sting sent Joe to go with him. Bully Ray was on the phone backstage. There's a lot of talking in a row.
Yeah.
To notice this when watching it.
They only had 4 matches.
Yeah. Bully Ray was on the phone backstage. Said he was going to regain his title. Then they were going to go home and celebrate. Next week they would tell the world the truth. And then closed saying, I love you too, Brooke. Swerve a-coming.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
This bastard.
He's trading up, everybody.
Sure, he came up with a great idea.
I bet he did.
I know how to solve this problem. Listen to this.
He is a veteran. He has been around. So Rampage and Joe hit the ring for a promo, and actually Joe was just there. Rampage explained that the MMA fans had called him a sellout, but he had always loved wrestling.
Classic Rampage promo.
It really was.
He's a victim.
Yes.
Every Rampage promo I've ever heard.
So he loved wrestling. He loved TNA. Main Event Mafia was his family. But he did not come here to get his ass kicked by guys on mopeds.
There are actually some boos when he started talking. But by the end of this segment, they were all cheering him. Mm-hmm. So good for Rampage.
Rampage.
He did a lot better this week. And he absolutely blew away Tito on this particular show.
He said he had an old partner who he was going to fight in November.
An old training partner.
He's going to fight in November. But he needs help right now, and he called out Tito Ortiz. And Tito came out and said, look, Rampage said, we're going to fight in November, but that's a sport. Right now I need your help in this fight. He said, I helped you train a lot for your matches. You owe me a favor. I want you to help us against the Aces and Eights. Tito said he was the longest reigning light heavyweight champ in MMA history. He had kicked many a butts across the country.
Many a butts. That's what he said.
That's what he said.
I've kicked many a butts.
It seemed like he was going to accept when Bully Ray interrupted, came out to Tito's music.
Yeah, they played Tito's music on accident when Bully came out.
Mm-hmm.
Way to go.
Ray threatened everyone in the ring, threatened to make Tito his Huntington Beach bitch. Tito was fighting to get at Ray, and Joe and Rampage had to hold him back, and Joe was also fighting to hold back laughter. This is actually a really fun segment. Rampage. I wrote that Rampage and Tito fit into the mic, but Rampage was better. You were correct. It led to, since they were out there anyway, Anderson versus Joe versus Magnus versus Bobby Roode in a tables match.
I'll make you my Huntington Beach bitch.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe nobody's ever used that in mixed martial arts for Tito. Maybe somebody has. I just
someone must have.
Just overlooked it, but yeah, that's a pretty good line.
So Joe and Magnus are tag team partners in the same stable, so they did not fight each other here in this match. They refused to punch each other or kick each other or anything, but they were doing everything they could to try to win before their partner did. Turned out that plan failed. So they brawled a lot, and there was one point where there was two guys brawling on either side of the ring, and the director managed to constantly focus on whichever brawl was least interesting.
That's right. There was they did a spot where I guess Joe rang the ring bell on
Roode's nuts,
Roode's balls, and everybody went nuts for it, so to speak. And on the other side of the ring, Anderson and Magnus were standing there selling.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And so all they were doing was kind of laying there selling, and the camera was just focusing on him. Nothing's happening. And all of a sudden you hear, ding, because he got hit in the balls again. But you didn't see it because they were focusing on these two men sitting there. I don't know how they missed this, besides the fact that,
it's TNA.
It's TNA and it's live.
Well, it's live. That's true, too. So Magnus made a big comeback. He has definite screen presence about him. And then Daniels and Kazarian returned again, and they helped Roode put Magnus through a table. Both of these finishes, by the way, involved an apple teeny to the face.
It's completely baffling because it is Anderson versus Roode versus Joe versus Magnus. And the heels come out, and apple teeny is blown into Magnus's face, and then Bobby Roode pins him, which results in heel commentator Taz laughing and talking about how great this is.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that his guy was in this match.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson. Apparently he forgot.
Taz forgot whose side he was on.
Yes. He was so happy that Bobby Roode had won. Meanwhile, by the way, I should note that in the ladder match, Taz, in the middle of this great ladder match, is talking about how he doesn't like the match because there's not a main event Mafia member in it.
That happened, yeah.
So then later, when there is a main event Mafia member in it, another guy wins and he celebrates. Oops.
It was all factual. Crowd thought this match was awesome. They were wrong. It was good. Sting cut a promo backstage, and he was talking about Tito Ortiz, and he appeared to change his mind about 4 times in the course of this promo. He said his gut told him that Tito would help him out, but he still wasn't sure, and he walked through a door. Bully Ray and Anderson cut a promo backstage. Ray was upset that Anderson had just lost his match, unlike Taz. Ray was upset. Anderson fired back, well, you dropped the ball, you lost to Chris Sabin twice, once in the title match, once in the tag match. They started shouting at each other, and Ray said, so you don't think I can beat him? And Anderson said, do you think you can beat him? And Ray screamed, I don't know. And there was awkward silence as Ray had admitted weakness. And they shouted at each other some more. Ray said his club had not been there for him when he needed them. Ray said, look, Anderson said, we're not your enemy. Ray said, you're not my ally either. This was actually really good. I enjoyed that. It led to Chris Sabin versus Bully Ray in a steel cage match for the world title.
This was awesome. They had, I talked last week about how every time I see Bully Ray and Sabin wrestle, I remember all those matches I used to have with Tim Flowers. Because they're all exactly the same. A big New York guy beating up a skinny, long-haired babyface.
Yep.
Old school wrestling, a bunch of high crosses, a bunch
lot of high crosses,
body slams,
sleepers,
and the little guy just doing a whole lot of selling.
Yep.
It's exactly every match I ever had with Tim. So when both guys come to the ring and with a straight face, Jeremy Borash announces that Chris Sabin is 219 pounds, I nearly died. Because, again, every match I ever had with Tim Flowers, they billed me at 210. 210 pounds!
Have you ever been 210 pounds in your life?
No, the closest I ever got was 195.
Yes.
And I was very fat.
Yes.
I did not look like Chris Sabin. Whenever I looked like Chris Sabin, I was maybe 165 pounds. But they still billed me as 210. And every time they did it, it resulted in laughter. Laughter, not just from myself, who could not keep a straight face, but from ringsiders, random fellas going, 210? He ain't 210! So anyway, they announced Sabin as 219 pounds. And they claim that Bully outweighs him by like 60 pounds. And you look at these two men, and Bully is like twice his size.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so Taz clearly knew how absolutely ridiculous this was. And so for about the first 10 minutes of this match, all he does every minute is make mention that Chris Sabin is 219 pounds. It's absolutely hilarious. And then they had every Tim Flowers, Bryan Alvarez match you've ever seen. The big dude beats up the little dude. The little dude fires up here and there and then gets kicked right in the face and gets beat up more. He sells a lot. Does a high cross. You know what I mean?
You know, I did watch you wrestle Tim Flowers dozens of times. And
it's exactly the same match.
That was a perfectly fine main event for the shows we did at, for example, the Roy County Fair.
Sure.
Or the B&I parking lot.
Yeah.
I guess it worked on TNA.
You know, what the hell was it, that theater?
Temple Theater.
Temple Theater. Yeah. Which may have drawn a bigger crowd.
That was the nicest place you ever worked.
It didn't. But, yeah. So this was fun.
Cloverdale Fairgrounds.
Cloverdale Fairgrounds.
Basically, what's the name of that?
We had the same match everywhere.
The Shelton...
If we would have worked at WrestleMania in front of 93,173 people, it would have been the same match that we worked at the B&I Marketplace in Tacoma, Washington.
The Shelton Fairgrounds, not during the fair when we drew about 14 people.
Yeah, exact same match. Because you know what? We brought it every night in the ring. We never half-assed it. It just always worked the same match.
Yes. So, they announced Chris Sabin weighing 219 pounds. I assumed they were counting the World Championship belt and that the World Championship belt weighs 50 pounds.
Sure.
That's what I thought. So then throughout this match, Sabin kept going for a fireman's carry and not being able to get Ray up.
This was awesome.
So he then
Because Ray's too heavy.
Ray's a big man and Sabin is small. So then he's making a comeback. And he yanks off Bully Ray's sleeveless leather vest, and suddenly he got him up for the fireman's carry and hit a DVD.
At which point Taz is like, man, must be a heavy vest. It's like, you're wearing one, buddy. Tell us how heavy it is.
So what we now know is that Sabin's belt weighs at least 50 pounds, but it still weighs less than Bully Ray's vest.
Well, I've talked about this before. let's say you're benching. You're doing the bench press. And you can bench press 185 pounds. Okay? And then you put on 2.5s on each side. Now you're benching 190. And you put on 2.5s again. Now you're doing 195. Well, this can't go on forever. You can't keep adding 2.5s and someday you're benching 95,000 pounds. At some point, you can't put on another 2.5. So maybe like you can do 215, but if you put on those 2.5s, there's no way you can get 220 up, right?
Okay.
So apparently, Chris Sabin's limit is exactly Bully Ray.
I guess so.
You throw the goddamn vest on him, and now he's just a little too heavy. This is believable. It's ridiculous, but it's believable. I can instill logic in this.
Have you seen the Biggie Langston Muscle Beach video?
I've seen the clip, but I haven't seen him actually lifting the weights.
He does like some, not upright rows, but some, bench rows and it's dumbbell rows. And it's not, he outright says in the video, it's really not that heavy. It's like 100 pounds with that. But then he's doing close grip bench press, 400 pounds, 4 reps. Just without a spotter.
Strong.
He's really, really strong.
Yeah.
So anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, Sabin.
They tried a top rope hurricane run a spot that got botched.
Oh my God, this got botched. I thought Sabin was going to land on his head and die.
Kind of lost the crowd a little.
That didn't happen. I think Ray was supposed to catch him and hit a powerbomb, but whatever happened, Ray suddenly hit the mat and started grabbing his shoulder and screaming, and then things got stupid. Here in the steel cage match, they did a ref bump. Technically, they did too. And the door got open.
And again, as in every Tim Flowers, Bryan Alvarez match, the babyface hits a drop kick.
Yes.
And has the champion, the 275-pound champion, pinned.
Yes.
But there's no ref. Damn it!
So, yeah, he chose to go for a pin with the door hanging wide open. He could have just walked out the door and walked to the back and got a beverage. But no, he went for a pin. Then he saw the door open, but he had to do the phony, fake pro wrestling crawl for the door, and by the time he finally got there, Anderson appeared out of nowhere to slam the door in his face, a la the Von Erichs and Ric Flair in Texas. Only Sabin popped to his feet and started shaking the cage in rage. So then Rampage and Tito ran down, and Rampage threw Anderson off the ramp. But then Tito pulled out a hammer, and Tito Ortiz hit Rampage Jackson in the head with a hammer. This will lead to them having an MMA fight.
This is a goddamn, I swear to God, weirdest thing I've ever seen. I know that these guys were training partners and friends, and I know that often, not often, but here and there, he'll have two guys that used to train together have a MMA fight. But these two men are going to have a fight on November 2nd, and here we are on August 16th, and they're playing pro wrestler together.
Yeah.
Tito is hitting him with a fake hammer, and he's selling for him.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
It is unusual.
It's hilarious. I couldn't believe my own eyes. You guys are doing a wrestling angle together.
I knew what was happening, and frankly, we knew it was going to happen last week.
You're about to fight for real.
Yeah.
And you're playing pro wrestler. It's wacky.
So, this distracted Sabin, who apparently found it as wacky as you did, and Ray then powerbombed him. And the ref turned around and counted the pin. So Bully Ray is world champion again.
He did throw him into the cage first, to be fair.
There was a cage spot in there, too. Pinned him with a powerbomb. Bully Ray is champion. Chris Sabin's very forgettable, ineffectual world title reign is over. And we're right back where we were a month ago.
Yep. Heel celebrated.
Yeah, except Tito and Rampage are there. But then they're going to blow that off in another company.
The theory was espoused to me that the reason that they changed the 5-on-5 to next week was because they wanted to make sure to edit it because Tito and Quentin were going to be in the ring together, and God knows, not that they would shoot on each other or anything like that, but they both
might screw up badly.
They both don't know what they're doing,
right.
So it may need to be edited. Well, apparently those guys aren't in the match next week. Quentin is, but they do not put Tito Ortiz in the 5-on-5 match. So I guess they were just going to protect... I don't know if they really need to protect Rampage. I doubt he did a whole lot. But the mystery man, for those of you that are... fast forward if you don't want spoilers. The mystery partner is back to being a full-fledged babyface, AJ Styles. With
how about that?
No dark gimmick. He's apparently just back to babyface AJ. So there you go.
Okay.
There you go. So that was Impact, everybody. It was a fun show. Ladder match was really good. Main event was fun and wacky. Gale and ODB, well, it was what it was. And the four-way table match was fine. And we had some funny stuff. So can't ask for more than that, everybody. And there were a lot of people on the show that liked each other, unlike Total Divas. Unfortunately, they were the heels.
But it's a start.
These heels are Kazarian and Daniels and Bobby Roode are way better baby faces than Cody Rhodes.
Oh, God,
throw
yes.
that out there. And they're not supposed to be, but they are.
Impact. Bully Ray and Tito Ortiz walked into the building. Ray was on the phone with Brooke concerning their plan tonight. Mr. Anderson approached. He was upset that Ray had not told anyone else that Tito was part of his plan. Oh, I thought Lance was stepping in. Instead, he's stepping out. Ray told Anderson to take care of his own business and don't worry about him and Tito. Daniels, Kazarian, and Roode came out for a promo. They congratulated Ray on regaining his title, but said he now had a target on his back. They were all bragging about their wins. Daniels vowed to win his match tonight. Roode said they were 25% of the BFG series, but why settle for a quarter when you could be a third? This involved math, and the crowd, much like Bryan, could not grasp it.
I didn't know what he was talking about.
They made a sales pitch to Austin Aries, but then Gunstorm interrupted. I'd forgotten these two men were in the company, let alone tag champs.
They're tag champs?
They are the tag team champions.
How about that? Yeah. And I was watching the show.
They did not have the belts with them. So Storm said that they'd all be fools to trust Bobby Roode. He had trusted Roode for 4 years, and then as soon as it was convenient, Roode had kicked him to the curb.
Sounded bitter and scorned.
He did, in fact, sound like a bitter, scorned cowboy. A brawl broke out, and even though it was 3-on-2, Daniels, I guess because he had another match later in the show, he just backed off. So it broke down into a tag match with a ref and everything. So Gunstorm versus Kazarian and Roode. Mutiny welcomed us to Hardcore Justice Week 2. It's a festival now.
Yeah, like the Great American Bash.
Yep. They had a pretty formulated tag match. Storm got the hot tag, hit all of his spots, and there was distraction with Kazarian and a title belt, and it ended with Roode hitting Storm in the nuts and rolling him up for the pin. I hope this doesn't mean that Daniels and Kazarian as a team are done, but they all celebrated together, and that was that.
Why would this mean they were done?
Well, because it was it was Kazarian and Roode here.
Well, Daniels was working later.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's what I'm saying. I hope that's why.
Don't read too much into this, Vinny.
Right.
You should know better.
Backstage, Aries pointed out that he had turned down Sting in the Main Event Mafia last week. Now he was being recruited again. He promised to give Roode and his crew an answer by the end of the night.
I wonder if since they turned AJ Styles babyface because that gimmick wasn't working, that now Aries is going to pop into whatever slot he had.
It appears there's a vacuum there. They must have one guy who is neither a babyface nor a heel, and if no one's in that spot, the company just shuts down, I guess. Sanjay Dutt wrestled Manik in the official end of the three-way X Division rule. We all tried to count the moves in this match. I got to 7,000.
I got 8 million.
What did you say, Lance?
I said 87, but I was only counting the ones they hit.
And Lance counted 87, only the ones they hit. So they did a lot of stuff very quickly. Manik found about 19 ways to drop Dutt across his knee, and one of them ended the match.
I have in my notes here, all action, 8 million moves, Manik wins with move. I miss anything?
I cannot find fault with that review.
They also announced that all X matches are now one-on-one.
Yes. Which is...
multi-man matches banished.
So it's...
Ultimate X, never again?
That's right.
They can never do Ultimate X again? Yes. So, yeah. Like on the surface, good because all three ways sucked. But you think about it, it's like, what if they need to do a three-way or an Ultimate X? Or
I think we're
something?
reading too much into all X matches one-on-one, but that's what they said.
That is what they said.
All X matches one-on-one.
Mr. Anderson met with the rest of the aces and eights. They asked what Ray had said, and Anderson said that Ray had basically said he wasn't helping them tonight. So they said, all right, we've got the Main Event Mafia is down 5-4. We'll beat one, send them out of town, and then it'll be 5-3. And it was a fine promo. We all noticed they were all incredibly sweaty.
I don't know if they were sweaty. They were just all wet.
Just like they just either ran a marathon or swam a mile.
I just picture, honest to God, I swear to God, this is what I picture in real life, that they all had spray bottles, and right before they started to shoot this, they all decided to spray themselves down just to be wet. Right?
I like my idea that they went swimming for.
But I mean, in real life, why were they all wet?
Swimming.
Forget the swimming, you idiot.
No.
In real life, when they were about to film this, why were these men all wet?
It looked like they had done the match and then filmed the promo.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but that's what it looked like.
I think they just all decided to spray themselves down so they'd be wet. Just for the hell of it. Because that's cool. Anyway.
Wet people?
Yeah. You know, Vinny, Lance would know this better. Haven't you seen the guys that they just spray themselves down before they go out there?
Yes.
To wrestle, yes.
Yeah.
No.
So, yes, that's basically a key point. To wrestle.
You know, they're
bare-chested, not in vests and T-shirts.
I don't know. I don't have an answer, but they were all wet.
I don't either. It was not like bodybuilders spraying themselves with oil. No. They were just wet.
Mm-hmm.
A 4-way street fight for 20 points.
Oh, my God. This stupid thing. You know, I don't want to... Maybe I'm just, like, nitpicking or whatever. But you've got this tournament where there are points, right?
Yes.
Just making sure I had that part right.
You're correct so far.
So if you submit some dude, you get 10 points. If you pin him, you get 7. And from there, I'm completely confused. Like, you lose via DQ.
The only other thing I know is that if you lose by DQ, it's minus 10.
Okay, minus 10.
Because Magnus lost 10 points because he just stood there.
You get 2 for something or other. But anyway, the point is, like, there are these points that you garner, right? Mm-hmm. So as the thing gets going, now all of a sudden they're throwing in matches where you can get 20 points?
Yeah.
Doesn't that kind of like, I don't know.
Yes, because especially because we just watched the G1 Climax where every match is weighted the same. It felt stupid that this whole thing started with Bobby Roode going 0-4, and then he won like one match and then a 4-way match for 20 points, and then cut a promo about how I'm in second place.
Yeah,
well, why do we watch those other 4 matches then?
Joe Park came into this match, and keep in mind we're at
least halfway through.
We're over halfway. He came in with minus 3 points.
Yes.
Now, suddenly, he has 17 points. Yeah. He's in the mix because of one bad match that sucked.
It was, in fact, a bad match that sucked.
It wasn't a sucky match, but there was some hilariously...
It was a sloppy match.
Preposterous spots, such as a...
The point where... that we're all laughing about now, where Jay Bradley picked up a chair, and he didn't swing it. He thrust it forward like a stabbing weapon, and he got Hernandez right in the ear.
It's
not
like
the back of the head, not the top of the head, the ear.
Listen, Hernandez wasn't like running.
No.
Maybe if a guy's running at you, you mistime it. Hernandez is sitting in the corner. Lance is taking over. He cannot believe what he's seen. Hernandez is sitting in the corner, and Jay Bradley picks up a chair. And he wields it like, as you noted, stabbing.
No, you're missing the best part.
Okay.
The best part is he picks it up, and you can see him debating, how can I hit this man?
Yeah.
He's got it like he's going to swing it, and it's like, oh, he's kind of in a shitty spot for that. And then he, like, debates a little bit more, and after, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds of serious debate, he decides, I'm going to take the hardest edge of this thing and jam it into the side of Hernandez's head and clip him right in the ear.
In the ear!
From behind. So Hernandez has no idea what happened and why he got bashed in the side of the head with the hard edge of the chair.
Think about what Hernandez looks like. He's a brick shithouse, as they say. He's got a giant, like, trunk. You know what I mean? There's so much stuff to hit. And you chose to strike his ear with the edge of a chair. And then we're watching this for another 5 minutes as Hernandez is constantly grabbing his ear. Like, fuck, my ear.
And he never really got the chance to recede him, which is what I was really disappointed in.
He ran into him one time, but that was not nearly enough.
No, it was not.
They had a wild brawl. There was some botched spot that I don't even know what happened, but I believe it also involved Jay Bradley. And then Aries turned on Daniels. Bradley used Nux on Park, which caused Park to bleed. And then he freaked out Black Hole Slam and won 20 points, digging him out of the hole by 17 points. This was the best thing on the show.
What?
As far as
humor and comedy.
Well, there was a lot more to talk about.
It was described accurately by the wording on the back of Bradley's tights.
What does it say?
Ugly. Lance? Yes. Joe Park was bleeding below. He was like bleeding from his chin. It really looked like he had cut himself shaving. Yes, Aries turned. Well, he turned whatever the hell he is, even though he was not actually in the match. Hernandez, in the middle of all this mess, took a backdrop on the ramp for no reason.
Can you turn tweener? Because isn't that right in the middle?
No, that's a good question. He fell into being a tweener?
He fell in the middle.
But none of this actually is my favorite part. Impact, like many shows, sometimes runs a little crawler along the bottom of the screen. Here's our local live events this week, or check out our website for this. So if they start running this crawler, it's an itty-bitty, teeny white letters, and it's rolling across the bottom of the ring apron, which is white letters in the gray background.
Literally.
We're all leaning forward in our chairs, squinting, trying to read this. Lance's daughter got closest when she said, quote, "Enter promo code something, something, something."
That's the most important
That's the best
part.
we can do.
That is the most important part, the promo code.
That's still more than I got out of it. She knew there was a promo code.
Lance did astutely note that this show is much more fun watching with a crowd. That I can confirm.
Yeah.
That is why this was the best thing on the show. I had the most fun during this match. Unfortunately, at Hernandez's expense, when I rewound it over and over to watch him get hit right in the ear.
And you make a great point, by the way. I was just thinking about this more, thinking about it in Jay Bradley's position. Hernandez is down in front of you with his giant, muscular, yard-wide, broad back. And you hit him in the ear.
Let me find the smallest target and most tender. This is idiotic.
Okay. What happened next?
Brooke recap.
There was a quick main event meeting and main event mafia meeting. Magnus tried to rally the troops. Had a long video recapping the entire Bully Ray Brooke Hogan love saga, and many times we say it's always good to keep your viewers up to date on what's going on in case they've missed an episode or months of episodes. In this case, this was not necessary. I did not need to see all this.
By the way, has it ever a single time on television, aside from random comments by random people, been mentioned that Dixie Carter is in love with Magnus? I heard that like 3 times on this show.
Really?
Like it's something that we should know.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, Bully Ray brought it up. Dixie Carter loves this guy, and Taz brought it up. Dixie Carter thinks this guy is so handsome.
Huh.
And I'm like,
well, we'll get to Taz.
This is news to 1.5 million of us.
We will get to Taz. Taz, by the end of the show, was something else. So...
Taz and Mike Tenay are like me and Dave, except I care more than Taz. Taz, you know what I mean? Like
it's actually a good comparison.
Taz
Mike
just
Tenay and Dave
fucks
Meltzer
around the whole time.
Yes.
Taz is just very stern, or Mike Tenay is very stern and just recapping the facts. And Taz is just he doesn't give a shit.
What entertains me right this second?
Yeah.
So Bully Ray came out. He had Tito with him. He bragged about how he had fooled everyone a second time and won their world title again. And Tito talked about Rampage being a sucker and vowed to beat him on November 2nd in their fight, spawned by Tito hitting him in the head with a hammer.
Which, by the way, Quentin was not selling at all this week.
He was fine.
He's got a very tough skull.
Ray then brought out the love of his life, Brooke. They played Brooke Hogan's music, and since she sings it, officially this was her last appearance on the show. It was, of course, Brooke Tessmacher.
Yeah.
She came out. she was well dressed. But
Bully's a smart guy. You know what I mean?
I thought about that too. Bully is a genius.
In a lot of ways.
Yes.
But he had her dressed as she should be dressed. Unlike when they used to have her come out in those skirts. obscuring her ass.
This was better. This was better. So she came out. She got no reaction. Fans didn't care. Announcers were like, oh, look, it's Brooke.
Actually, let me talk about that for a second. After the whole thing went down, and they did a spot where Brooke stuck Bully's finger in her mouth in a very lewd manner, sucked the ring off of his finger, and then spit it out, which actually was a hell of a spot, I won't lie. But when this happened, Mike Tenay was just like, he sounded like he was appalled. Okay? So I don't know why, but I am pretty sure that they had the announcers do a voiceover when she came out. And I don't know what happened that necessitated this voiceover, but Taz sounded like he could not give a shit. He did not, actually not even right. He just completely downplayed it. Like, oh, hey, look, it's Brooke Tessmacher. And then Mike Tenay sounded like he was reading off a script, word for word what had been written for him.
And he had not seen the script before.
No, he read it like a robot. There was no emotion. There was nothing. And it like completely killed the reveal. Like, I knew the reveal. Everybody did. But if and I guess if it would have been live, it wouldn't have been a voiceover. But man, when she came out, I mean, this should have been like a kind of a big angle. Or at least people should have cared a bit.
Should have reacted in some way.
But man, the way they had the announcers announce this, it was just like, it was nothing, you know? It was absolutely nothing. So, I don't know why, but, you know, they killed it.
She came out. You know that Bully Ray is a genius. She came in the ring and made out with him.
Oh, yeah.
There was, the crowd booed that, although it did sound piped in. They showed fans giving a thumbs down to the camera, and they appear to be following directions just like Tenay was.
Well, I heard live that it got over at the time, so maybe it wasn't, but certainly the announcers were not live, I don't think.
They did the wedding ring spot you mentioned, and it ended. Somewhere in here, I think it was just in Bully Ray's opening promo, he just pointed to Taz, and the camera cut to Taz. Taz, mind you. The most miserable man on the planet was his gimmick. The human suplex machine. The guy who talked about walking the face of the earth pissed off. And he is smiling and waving at the camera. Giddy.
I can't even
Gave
describe.
a big thumbs up. Now, they showed it the first time. And to be perfectly frank, it almost looked like something they shot like at the beginning of the show and then edited into this promo just because they thought it was funny. But they went to commercial. They came back and recapped the angle, and they included that shot of Taz.
Yep.
They showed it twice.
It was hilarious.
As my notes read here, he has given up even a pretense of pretending to care. So, on that note, we move to Gail Kim versus ODB.
Oh my God, this was
Taz
also great.
Spent most of this match trying to decide which fruit most resembled ODB's breasts.
Yes.
And it was a long discussion.
And later, her vagina.
That also came up. He made a not-so-veiled reference to her vagina, as you noted. And at that point, I determined he was making an open effort to get fired.
Lance, would you like to talk about ODB's vagina here on the air?
Not particularly.
I'll do it then. So, they did a spot where Gail gets a low blow.
Yeah, Gail
Kim, woman, gets hit
ODB
in the nuts.
hit it. Gail was the victim, yes.
So then Taz is immediately like, why is Gail selling this? Not those exact words, but... So then there was another spot where she's on the top rope and she gets crotched and she sells her balls, which she doesn't have. So, all right, fine. We're gonna go under the assumption that in this match, shots to the vagina hurt girls. So then immediately thereafter, ODB is in the corner and she proceeds to take Gail's skull and ram it repeatedly into her own vagina, which hurt Gail's head. And not ODB's vagina. This made no sense.
I will say, I once saw a comedian whose name I can't remember. I was just trying to look it up and I can't find her. But she did a bit on this about falling down in the bathtub and crotching herself. And she explained it to the men in plain language. Yes, it hurts really, really bad.
I'm sure it hurts.
Yes.
I don't doubt that one bit. But still. I don't know.
As much as the shoulder breaker to come.
Now, yes,
Oh,
we didn't talk
God,
about
I
that part
forgot.
yet. Gail grabbed ODB and attempted to hit a shoulder breaker. It almost looked like...
Stop right there.
All right.
Whose fucking idea was this?
Don't know.
Gail Kim, honest to God, can't weigh more than like 110 pounds.
No.
How much do you think ODB weighs?
More.
Considerably?
Yes.
Double?
No.
Not 220?
She's not 220 pounds.
200?
No.
180?
Maybe.
All right. So their idea was, I'm going to lift you onto my shoulder, and I'm going to give you a shoulder breaker onto my knee. That was their idea going in. Tell us what happened.
Gail, it started with ODB on the top rope just so Gail could get her up. Then Gail managed to carry her to the middle of the ring without falling down, although that was a struggle.
It was impressive.
Then she, in attempting to hit the shoulder breaker and control ODB, well, she failed to control ODB. It almost looked like she forgot which knee she was dropping her on and then put the other knee out. So the result of all this was that ODB dropped down, her shoulder barely grazed Gail's knee, and then
She kept going.
she just didn't slow her down at all, mind you, and she just kept going down right on top of her head.
I can laugh about it now because, I mean, she
She's
wasn't
alive.
hurt at all.
Yes.
You know, but just watching it, I mean, everybody in the room, like, gasped and some screamed. Like, what the hell was that? Yeah, she tombstoned her and then put her in a hold.
So, this match, which was all about breasts, vaginas, and a tombstone of death, the finishing spot was Gail hit a crucifix cradle. And it was a 1, 2, 3 count. And then she let go of the hold. And ODB remained balanced on her shoulders with both legs in the air, kicking like a bicycle, for a good 5 seconds.
Trapped.
Like her shoulders were glued to the canvas and she could not move.
Remember the nudo?
Yeah, from Lucha.
Yes.
Only, at least that one you were tied in a knot.
Didn't I do the nudo on you in a match?
No, you did it to Nate.
Oh, that's
And Sonny walked around and confused.
right.
But no.
Nate, everybody, was about 9 feet tall, which was the comedy.
Nate was 9 feet tall and 150 pounds.
Yes.
He looked like a guy who could be tied into a knot. But, yeah, so he was in a knot. ODB was just back on her shoulders. I literally don't think I could have held this position as long as she pretended to be trapped.
Well, I don't know if you know this, Vinny, or Lance, since you were the Space Needle, but the Space Needle, there's the needle, and then there's like a giant weight underground. You know what I mean? So the thing can't fall over because of the giant weight like this. That's what keeps the Space Needle. Her tits.
Well,
she was trapped by the weight of her own breasts.
when I'm thinking about this and the position she was in,
She was like the
essentially
Space Needle.
upside down, with her breasts, with her bosom acting as a counterweight.
Exactly.
There's actually some physical logic here. That's the smartest thing you've ever said.
Oh, come on now. So there you go. This match was also fabulous.
This was a spectacle. No one can deny that.
Yep.
We had a video package with Jeff Hardy, who won the Bound for Glory series last year. Talked about how hard it was to win and how he wanted to win it for his daughter. Lance noted as this was going on, Hardy pointed out he's the only man to win the tournament and then win the title. And then Lance said, there's only been 2 tournaments.
Yeah.
That is true. So we had Aries explaining his actions backstage. To quick recap, he turned down the main event Mafia this week. He turned down Roode and Kazarian and Daniels this week and caused them to lose. Then he ran away like a coward. So here he is cutting a promo about how he doesn't need Hulk Hogan or Dixie Carter or anyone else. So yes, for the past, 6 months, we've seen AJ Styles floundering, not being a heel and not being a face. Apparently they needed someone else to do it. This is a bad idea. They showed Chris Sabin cutting a whiny promo after his title match last week. Couldn't believe what had happened to him, but he vowed to be back. Main event was the Aces and Eights versus Main Event Mafia, and the loser leaves the fall. Loser of the fall must leave TNA match. Ray, Brooke, and Tito came out on stage to watch. Ray sits down in a chair. Brooke sits in his lap. Tito has to stand.
Didn't even bring the fucker a chair.
No, there's one chair in the building, and it goes to him. So Anderson pointed out this was a 5-on-4 match, and since that's not fair, we'll do you guys a favor. You can settle it amongst yourselves. One of you can lay down voluntarily. We'll pin him. He'll be gone. Everyone goes home.
This guy's the spokesman, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah?
He's no good at it. stumbles around. Anyway, go on.
Would you want to hear Garrett?
Well, this point I'm making. Slim pickings here in the aces and eights.
So Sting declined this offer, and the match is about to begin when AJ Styles' bluesy country music hits, and he saunters out on stage in his jacket and hoodie, and he kind of shoots a look at Ray, and Ray's confused, and he gets to the middle of the ramp, and he stops, and he hangs his head, and then his old music hits, and he does the big dramatic throw off of the hood, and he fires up, and he's all big baby face again, and this is hokey and corny, and I will not deny I love this.
It actually was awesome. The place went nuts.
Legit, this is not piped in noise. People were waving around and excited to see Happy AJ again.
If you're going to blow off the gimmick, this is a fine way to do it.
Yes. I don't care that it came out of nowhere. I don't care that there's no good reason for it. It wasn't working. They're just going back to him being awesome again.
Great. Yeah.
So everyone went nuts when he threw off the hood and his music's playing. And he jumps in the ring and a giant brawl breaks out. And there's 10 dudes in this match. Everyone pair off, find a guy and brawl. And somehow no one bothered to coordinate to make sure that the worst guy on each team didn't end up together. So we got, in plain view, uninterrupted on television for several seconds, Wes Brisco brawling with Rampage Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Rampage selling for Wes Brisco.
Well, I would rather watch that than watch the strikes Rampage was throwing.
I liked when he threw these terrible strikes and it caused Wes to leap 9 feet in the air every time.
This is like a parody of bad pro wrestling.
Yeah.
This is two kids on the playground playing.
And then later, Rampage makes a comeback. And yeah, he tries to do the old, I never knew how much talent it took to block punch and throw punch like Hogan does. But Rampage made it look like, man, this takes years of practice. Block punch. Then he threw a couple of clotheslines, and then he threw a body slam.
The body slam looked okay.
All you need to know is, like, the crowd just kind of sat there looking at this, like, wow.
Yeah.
Look at this. No big pop, nothing. Just watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got Wes Brisco running the ropes. I will say we watched this once. I'm like, holy God, that's awful. Then we went back and watched it. To be fair, the ref and some of the other guys were...
There were guys in his way.
Getting in his way. Like, deliberately getting in his way.
Which is also great.
So he was not the only one who looked bad here. We had heat on Magnus for a while. Sting got a hot tag. We had Rampage's comeback where... How can you be trained in striking people? And I know there's a difference between real hitting and fake hitting, obviously, but just throw punches.
You know what, though? Remember in 1998 when Mike Tyson punched out Shawn Michaels? That looked fucking great.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Mike Tyson was well, I guess Rampage was as well. Longtime wrestling fan. But anyway, yeah, his punches need a lot of work.
Yeah. I am amazed, by the way, thinking about this. We are he's about 10 weeks away from his fight.
Mm-hmm. And
I know it's not like he was taking bumps in there or anything, but guys have been hurt before fights doing less than Rampage did here.
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of, in hindsight, when it was all done, I was like, I can't believe Rampage did that. Where were we? So, Devon broke up the Scorpion. AJ made his big comeback, or he tried to. AJ and Devon were not working together well. When AJ wanted Devon to stand, Devon bumped. And when he wanted Devon on the ground, Devon got up. Then when Devon wanted to hit the Pele kick, there was no one behind him to kick. That wasn't Devon's fault. That was just everyone's fault. There was a point here where Rampage just wandered into the ring and then wandered back out. And finally, AJ pinned Devon with a Styles Clash. Now, based on what I wrote and what I've told you, it probably sounds like this is a terrible match. On the whole, I enjoyed it. There was just a lot to pick it apart. It was really long.
It was very long and heavily edited.
It was heavily edited as well. And the parts I described are like the worst 3 or 4 minutes of the 15-minute match or so. So really enjoyed it. It came off like a big deal. AJ's a babyface again. Everyone loves him. And it was a fine finish to a fun show.
All right, throw Lance in here really quickly. Lance, any final thoughts on this show other than the excitement that we just recapped there?
No, I thought it was all right. When you don't watch it regularly, because I only catch it about half the time. It's hard to get into too much of the story, so I find I don't get invested too much. But on the whole, it was a decent show. But yeah, I just couldn't get past the chair shot to the ear. And again, unfortunately, the X Division stuff just moves so fast that I can't care. But yeah, on the whole, the main event was decent. Much better when AJ was in than most of the others. But on the whole, it was a decent show for sure.
You need that as your avatar, that chair shot to the ear.
Oh, just a animated GIF or GIF, or however it's pronounced.
Yeah. I didn't even notice it the first time. I just saw him hit him with the chair, and you screamed. I was like, "What happened?" You go, "He hit him in the ear," and I was like, "Hit him in the ear? He couldn't have hit him in the ear." And I rewound, and sure as shit, hit him right in the ear.
Yeah, there's going to be a receipt coming.
Oh, that's literally, there are few people on the roster. Maybe Kurt Angle would be above, but fewer people I'd want a receipt from than Hernandez. His when he's friendly with you, it looks like he's killing you.
Have they had their Bound for Glory series tournament match yet?
Who? Hernandez?
Hernandez and Jay Bradley.
I don't know.
There may be a border toss from hell in his future.
Oh, God. Yeah. All right, let's talk about Impact. I would like to kick it off here by, at the beginning of the show, I talked about how this show absolutely sucked. I would like to apologize already. My main infuriated gripe with the show was the fact that at the end of the show, Hulk Hogan announced that next week it was Bully Ray versus Sting for the title. Despite the fact that a few months ago, Sting lost a match where he would never, ever get a match for the title again. No explanation for why he was getting a title shot. There was no explanation for anything. They just went off the air. But as it turns out, it was our, I can't say weekly because he's been gone for a while, but at least our monthly Hulk Hogan live fuck-up, where he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about or he forgets. He was not supposed to announce a championship match. He was supposed to announce a non-title match with Sting and Bully, but he fucked it up. So I apologize to everybody at Impact Wrestling. It's live TV. This ain't the first time Hogan's done it. This was not their fault.
All right.
With that said, the AJ stuff was idiotic. Well, we'll get to that.
So, yeah, we watched Impact Wrestling. It opened with the Aces and Eights coming out for a promo. Bully Ray noted they had lost the match last week, and as a result, Devon was out of the group and out of the company. Asked each guy in the match what had happened. They all either made excuses or said it was not their fault, they were doing their job or something like that. And he appeared to understand and sympathize with each one of them. And he got to Anderson at the end. Anderson said, look, Devon knew the risks going in. He's gone now. It could have been one of us. It is what it is. And Ray, for just a brief moment, teased, ripping into Anderson there. But instead he turned to the camera and said Devon had always been a loser and a disappointment. He was glad he was gone. They had someone better now. Started to induct Tito Ortiz into the gang. Anderson went crazy, saying this kind of thing should go to a vote. Ray can't just let anyone in whenever he feels like it. Ray told him to shut up, called out Brooke. Brooke came out with Tito's vest. Anderson physically stepped in the way to try and stop this. Bully had to back him into the corner, muscle him into the corner. Finally, Ray told Anderson or anyone else in the gang if they had a problem with it, they could all leave. Finally, he promised that Hulk Hogan would be there and he was going to introduce Hulk to the only Brooke who would ever matter to him. That was the opening segment.
You know, in my life, I have not had a ton of great things to say about Mr. Anderson. In fact, 90% has probably been negative. But I'm about to praise the shit out of this guy. I just swore again. I apologize, Granny. Mr. Anderson, per wrestling standards, is a great actor. Like, I don't know how I've never noticed this before. And I think part of it was because when Bully was interviewing everyone else in the Aces and Eights, the rest of them all completely suck. They can't deliver a line to save their lives. But I noticed it on this show, and then I started thinking about it. And Mr. Anderson is really, really good at this. So Big thumbs up to Mr. Anderson. He's great in every single one of these segments that he was in tonight. He was great. So good for him. Now, he didn't have a match. That's an entirely different story. But I thought he did a great job.
So, Jeff Hardy cut a promo backstage saying last year he had needed a last-minute win over Samoa Joe to get into the Bound for Glory finals. This year he was in the same position he needed to beat Kazarian. And we didn't mention this yet on this show, but it appears there was some horrible planning in TNA, and they had to cut their tournament short by many weeks, or at least cut many matches out of their tournament, with many guys left to compete. And I think people were expecting us to go crazy and rip into them, but here's the thing. They've done this tournament now 3 times, and this year's version is still very clearly second best. It's not nearly as good as last year's. It's much better than the first year's.
I don't, for the life of me, have any idea what happened. I have absolutely no idea what went wrong with this tournament. I don't know. I mean, the assumption had been that everybody was going to wrestle everybody else, right?
That's the idea.
66 matches. Now, they couldn't possibly have thought that they would have time to do 66 matches. Could they? Now,
not if they count the house shows and stuff.
I believe somebody on the board had posted a tweet from David Lagana on Twitter where he said that we never said it was round robin. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. I thought it was round robin. But the big criticism of the first year's Bound for Glory tournament, the one that, of all people, Vince Russo booked, was that when it was over, some of the guys had like 19 matches.
Yes.
And some of the guys had like 7 matches.
Yes.
That's not fair.
Right.
So somehow they did a tournament here where I believe, was it 33 matches did not take place?
I don't know.
It was more than half. They didn't even make it halfway. So I haven't gone back to look. Somebody actually had a list of the matches that had taken place and had not. I haven't gone back to look to see, like, did some people have 19 matches and some people had 4? If that's the case, and this was no better than the first year that they did the Bound for Glory tournament, I have absolutely no idea how this happened. I think the key to the whole thing is that if you and I and everybody on this website, if we had not been alerted that they'd just thrown the whole thing out the window and that everybody wasn't getting all their matches, I think there's a good chance that at least half of the people listening to this would not have even noticed when they did the wrap-up today that they hadn't finished all the matches. Mm-hmm. And I would guess that the vast majority of people at home would not have either. And although some people are listening to this at this exact second and smoke is coming out of their ears because they feel that I'm defending TNA, in fact, I'm not. Because when you run a tournament and you wrap it all up inconsequentially like they've done, and nobody even notices anything that's wrong, you've run a bad tournament. That's the way I look at it. I mean, could you possibly have wrapped up the G1 without doing all the matches? Of course not.
Oh, no.
Of course not. Everybody would have immediately noticed. But in the Bound for Glory tournament, you could wrap it up early, and I would bet of the 1.5 million viewers, 1 million of them didn't even notice that it was being wrapped up early. They were just like, oh my God, it's the last week already. Wow, who's in 4th place? If they even cared about that. So anyway, I just believe, I'll just give my advice. Never do this tournament again.
You can't do it.
It has failed every year in one way or the other. So just stop. Let's do something else next year. Or just have like 4 guys. A 4-guy round-robin tournament. You can do that, right? 12 matches?
I don't see why not. Yeah, I think this year, and again, I don't know for sure, but I think everyone got the same amount of matches, or at least very close. It's not like the absurdity of the first year where they were just picking guys out of hats and it was a complete clown show.
Still better that first year than the WCW title tournament where Medusa got in it twice.
There was that.
I'll plug it again, everybody. Buy the new Death of WCW for the chapter. I'll tell you why I'm buying the book. The chapter on the year 2000. And I wrote it, but I don't care. I want a hard copy of this book. There is going to be a limited edition hard copy, and I want a hard copy edition of this book with the story of the year 2000 in WCW. It is worth whatever you pay for this book, if I do say so myself. This is the absolute dumbest year in the history of professional wrestling in any company ever. Ever! And RD sent me a chart. In the original book, the 2000 chapter was 20,000 words. In the new book, it is 31,000 words. I've added 9,000 words of pure idiocy to the 2000 chapter. It is my finest moment. It shall be my legacy. It should be its own book. When you read this chapter, you will not even believe it. Because, like me, you all have blocked this year out of your minds. Especially those of you that think that 2000 was the most exciting year ever in wrestling in WCW. You are out of your mind. Out of your mind. Nothing in TNA even comes close. In fact, I wrote the TNA chapter of this new book before I went back and I rewrote the 2000 chapter. And as I'm going through every stupid thing I could think of in the history of TNA, I wrote a big-ass long chapter on it. Everything I could think of, and there were people on the board that put stuff in the impact stupidity thread. I wrote that thing and I was like, oh my God, I cannot even believe this. This chapter is gold. And then I went back to WCW 2000 and it was like, I could just cut that other chapter out of the book because it doesn't even compare. It does not even compare to 2000 WCW. So anyway, that's my plug for this week.
All right. Kazarian wrestled Jeff Hardy. They casually announced here that any interference from Kaz and his buddies would mean all three of them would be kicked out of the tournament. I like they waited until literally the very last day of the tournament to decide this. Interference would be bad. We should eliminate this. After things like somebody attacked Magnus for a DQ and cost him 10 points, they didn't throw that guy out of the tournament. So they had a fun match. Crowd was really into it.
By the way, since you mentioned it, think about this, everybody. They just shot an angle like 2 weeks ago where Roode and Kazarian and Daniels had in fact vowed to ruin all the matches in the tournament.
Yes.
2 weeks later, 4 matches, it's done, and they didn't ruin a single one. Oops.
In fact, they tried to ruin one and failed.
Maybe there's no calendar in Nashville. Is it possible they don't have calendars in that city?
Yeah, the Mayan calendar.
Maybe it isn't a Mayan calendar. I hadn't thought of that. In which case, they shouldn't have started the tournament because it's done. Maybe they're starting on the new one.
I am reminded of one of my all-time favorite Loveline moments when they asked the caller how often he did drugs or something. And the caller's response was probably 5 times in an 8-day week. He had his own time system.
Yeah.
So, Hardy used a terrible figure 4 in this match.
Oh, my God. This was the second worst figure 4 I've ever seen behind Hulk Hogan's.
Hulk Hogan's was still worse, but...
Actually, you know what? This is worse. Oh, no. This wasn't the finish. Never mind.
This was not the finish. There was all I can say is Kazarian turned it over, and it appeared that Jeff was actually reaching his own hands behind his own back to grab Kazarian's leg and keep it in place.
This was the most horrendous figure 4 ever.
So, fortunately, it was not the finish. Hardy squished him with the senton, and he won. And this, by the end of the night, put him in the final 4. Aces and Eights were backstage. They were all pissed at Bully Ray, had no faith in him, thought he'd lost his mind. They agreed that no one man was bigger than the club.
Mutiny tease.
Gale versus ODB in a top contenders match that for no particular reason was 2 out of 3 falls. Gale, perhaps in a tribute to Jeff Hardy, used a botched leg lock submission hold. Unlike Jeff, it was the finish of the first fall.
She fucked this up so bad.
It started off like a heel hook, and then I don't know what happened. So that was the finish to the first fall. Then she tried it again, and ODB rolled her up and pinned her to win the second fall. I'm not leaving virtually nothing out of that recap.
No.
Those were the first 2 falls almost in their entirety. Why even bother making this 2 out of 3 falls?
Then they had an awesome moment. If you recall last week, there was a crawl across the bottom of the screen.
Yes, that no one could read.
In white lettering that scrolled across the canvas, which is also almost white.
Yes.
Thus, you could not read a goddamn thing. Well, this week they fixed it. The white letters were on a thick black bar,
Hey now.
so that you could very easily read all of the letters, except for the fact that it was scrolling at 5,000 miles an hour.
Yes. You could read this if you were the Flash.
This is so funny to me. It was so funny. It was like they fixed it and then sped it up 10 times. So you still couldn't read it. Next week, they got to put on the black background, but slow it down, but put it backwards.
I was going to say leave the letters off.
Put them inside out or something. This is amazing.
Do it in French.
Sure, that's even better.
So there are more submission holds in the third fall. Gale used the ring post figure 4 and the
like
Brock Lesnar horse collar. And then ODB put on a Texas cloverleaf, and she won. That was the end. So ODB gets a shot at Mickie James.
It's like a slow build. The first week, you can't read it. The second week, it goes too fast. The third week, it's in a foreign language. And finally, the fourth week, they get it right, so you can read it, and it's going at a good pace. But then it's advertising something that was the week prior.
I was going to say.
That's how this has to go.
You see plugging a past event.
Yeah. It's Sunday. No surrender. Oh, shit, that was last Sunday.
Velvet Sky was backstage plugging the all-girls one-night-only pay-per-view
Oh,
show.
this sucked.
They asked her why she had missed Hardcore Justice. She said it was about personal issues. They asked her about dating Chris Sabin, and she...
Why? Why would they ask that? Because it's a shoot.
Yeah.
Because none of us watching this know she's dating Chris Sabin. Well, I mean, we do, but like...
I didn't.
1.5 million people, 1.4999999 million had no idea, including Vince.
Yes.
Now it's part of the storyline.
Yeah.
For a while, she says. We've been dating for a while. Really? Oh, okay. Whatever. They couldn't just do like a slow build to them dating on TV and actually create a story out of it instead of a story that...
They have to start with the breakup.
Yeah, of course.
Daniels and Roode were freaking out backstage. Roode calmed both of them down. He said, as long as you win your match and I win my match, we'll be fine. And Daniels vowed to go finish off Austin Aries. Went to commercial. They came back. Aries was cutting a promo, saying if you wanted something done right, you had to do it yourself. He quoted Belle Biv DeVoe. Said he wanted to wrestle AJ in a great match again. Daniels came in, and they ran at each other, and they both said they're going to kick the other guy's ass.
Oh, my God. I just got an email.
Is it from Velvet?
It's
not a denial.
So, no, it's not from Velvet. Hold on. I got to cough. Sorry, everybody. So, they're taping tonight, right?
Yeah.
So, they taped Explosion. So, on Explosion, they
still
decided...
do that show?
Apparently. They did a match for the Bound for Glory series. You ready?
All right.
Jay Bradley beat Joe Park.
Aren't they both eliminated?
They both have already wrestled each other.
Oh, yeah.
So they did not do half of the matches, but they still did one of the matches twice.
That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the worst one they've done. All right. Main Event Mafia came out for a promo. Angles and Rehab. Magnus is in England, apparently. Actually, I guess he was at the building, but to get his working visa. Point is, Sting was in the ring. Samoa Joe was in the ring. Rampage Jackson was in the ring, and that was it. Rampage warned Tito he was not going to wait for their Bellator pay-per-view fight on November 2nd to get revenge. Wisely working in both the date and the event. He also said every time he saw Tito, he was going to stomp a mud hole in his ass because, Brian, as he explained, the rules are different over here.
Yeah.
So Samoa Joe started to talk, and I don't know what this man ever did in Ohio, but Cleveland loved him. Said they owed their win last week to AJ. Sting said AJ had stepped up and put his own career on the line to fight alongside them. That earned him an invitation into the Main Event Mafia, and he wanted to bring AJ out to thank him publicly.
Now, before AJ comes out, everybody, I want you to remember, if you saw last week's Impact, when AJ comes out to his country music, and then all of a sudden his old music plays. He whips off his hood. He does the old AJ Styles babyface thing. Everybody goes nuts. Everybody loves AJ.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So this week he comes out, same old country music. Then his babyface music hits. He gets in the ring. He tells him to go away, and he proceeds to do a promo where he explains that I am not with the mafia. I wore the suit for a while, didn't fit me. I'm my own man. I'm with no one. The longer he talked, the more the crowd died.
Yes.
They died, and then they started chanting, "What?"
Yep.
He talked about how wrestling, everyone, Impact Wrestling, TNA Impact Wrestling to AJ Styles is, and I quote, just a job. He expressed his bitterness about his position in the company.
Yeah.
The fans chanted yes. AJ Styles said, I deserve better. He buried TNA. Fans at this point, not only were they killed, but now they started chanting, "You suck!" at AJ Styles.
Yes.
He prayed that he would be fired from TNA so that he would not have to quit. At this point, the fans began to chant, "Boring!" At which point he said, "Get this! I thought about it, and I decided I like being a company guy. I like being the guy they come to when they need help. The question is, can I become the champion?" And then he left.
Well, he wrestled, but yes.
What in the fuck was this?
This was a disconnect with human psychology and what makes someone likable and someone you want to cheer for.
I think that they thought that they were going to play off the fact that his contract is coming due, and he may conceivably be trying to get out of TNA.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they were trying to play off in this promo.
Probably.
But he came off as so whiny and so bitchy and so unlikable, completely killed all of the goodwill that they created last week. And by the time it was over, he was like a hypocrite to himself.
Yes.
All he did was bitch about everything in TNA. He wanted to be fired. He wanted to get out. He deserved better. And then all of a sudden he goes, "You know what? I like it."
You're leaving out maybe the best part, was where he said that he had severe trust issues. And he announced that the only person AJ Styles could trust was Alan Jones.
That's right. His shoot name.
Yes.
It was a shoot.
And the crowd went, because they don't know who Alan Jones is. They know this guy's AJ Styles.
Yeah. This sucked.
This was not good.
Very much sucked.
Wrestled Bobby Roode. Thank God he can still work. Neither guy ever hit his finisher. They were wrestling, and Roode tried to roll up, and AJ reversed it, and it was good enough to win. But as soon as the ref counted 3, AJ popped up and had a look in his face like, oh, fuck. Because you see, based on the point standings, he needed a submission win to stay alive. So by winning this match via pinfall, he essentially eliminated himself.
The heartbreak.
Yes.
Don't worry, though, everybody.
There's more to come.
Don't worry.
There's a plan B. Actually, the best part was AJ was out despite winning, and Roode was in despite losing.
Yes.
So this match proved irrelevant in the end. Then Daniels versus Aries. I know why you say you hated the show, and I know you kind of apologized for part of it already, but there was a lot of good wrestling on the show.
There was a lot of good wrestling on the show, but you know what? There's good wrestling all over the place. I could see good wrestling on Raw. I can see good wrestling on SmackDown. Yes, there's good wrestling on Impact. I could see good wrestling on NXT. I could see good wrestling in New Japan. I could see good wrestling all over the world. You ain't going to make it on good wrestling. But there was good wrestling on this show.
Such as Chris Daniels versus Austin Aries.
Yes, very good.
Maybe the best match in the show, which is saying something. Aries won with the Brainbuster. And so at this point, with all the matches being done, the final 4 was Magnus, who was not on the show, Jeff Hardy, Austin Aries, and Bobby Roode.
Mm-hmm.
Bully Ray cut a promo backstage, told Tito to keep an eye on Mr. Anderson. It was time for the main event promo. Hulkster came out, showed the Bound for Glory leaderboard, pointed out the top 4, and said things were changing. There's going to be one more match next week, a gauntlet match for 20 points, and anyone could win that and get a spot in the Final 4.
Can you believe this? Why did they even bother doing a tournament?
That's a damn fine question.
I mean, talk about making the points not matter at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you actually had a moment here where the points mattered. Like, the only time in the entire tournament when points mattered was when Styles pinned Roode, but a pin was not enough to get him into 4th place.
Yeah.
So you finally, after all of these months, had a series of... You had a match with a point, a number of points at the end that matter, and then what do? 10 minutes later, it don't matter. We're having a 20-point. Anybody can get in. Literally anybody could end up in the Final 4. Maybe not everybody. A couple down there at the bottom.
Hulk said anyone.
Well, I know, but I looking... Someone had 7 points. 7 plus 20 is 27. They still ain't in the Final 4. But
I'm just going off what Hulkster said.
Hulkster said it was a title match next week.
I know.
So don't go off with this numbskull says.
Well, Hulk said a lot, and we kind of need to categorize it because it left us confused and angry. So that's one. Bully Ray came out. Hulk then announced he had spent a lot of money, but his daughter Brooke was now divorced from Bully and moving on with her life. Ray said he had used Hulk and his daughter to get everything he wanted. Now he was champion again. He didn't need them anyway. Hulk then said in 2 weeks, Ray is going to defend his title against somebody else in his gang. Bully Ray refused, but Hogan said that match is going on in 2 weeks. And then he said Ray was going to defend his title this week. That's mistake number 2. In fact, that's mistake 2 and 3. Because he was not defending his title and it was not supposed to be this week. But it was going to be against Sting. Sting ran out. I was in the middle of writing a sentence about how, hey, he lost a match and said no more title matches. And then the show ended. It was in the middle of a brawl. And that was the end of the show. That was crummy.
Holy God. I don't know what to say. I do not know what to say. Plus, I know we're getting a swerve. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's expecting it's going to be Bully versus Anderson. What the hell was that?
Built on the microphone.
That was disgusting.
I apologize. I thought I was yawning, and that came out.
Everybody's expecting it to be Bully versus Anderson, and I'll bet you anything it's like Bully versus Devon. You know?
I'm thinking Jeff Jarrett returns.
Or maybe it's going to be Bully versus Brooke Hogan. Because Hulk did say it's someone in your family.
That would be a swerve.
Or what if in your family is referring to himself and they do Bully versus Hulk with no build on pay-per-view for free? God, that'd be awesome. This place has lost it. They've just lost it. This was sad. This was a sad show. But, hey, there was a lot of great wrestling. That's no lie. Man, this tournament. It's actually comedy at this point. How many times they've screwed this tournament.